Additional aids and services are available to individuals with disabilities. To make such a request, please contact us by email by clicking the Help tab in the PD portal or at pdportal@tamu.edu, by phone including Relay Texas at 1-800-441-7323, or in writing to Train PD, PD Portal Support, 4477 TAMU, College Station, Texas 77843. Both a transcript and accessible document of the content presented in this webinar can be found as resources in the course description. Click on the blue links under Course Resources in the description. When a link is clicked, a new browser window will open.
I want to welcome Ryan at this time. Welcome.
Thank you, Anne Marie, and thank you everyone for being here today. So I welcome you as well. Today we're going to be talking about Quill. This platform is really interactive. I think you'll really enjoy learning about the different features and how we can apply it in your classrooms. Ultimately, we want to help you to understand the features of the 6 different learning tools that Quill offers. We'll have a demo and you'll get an overview of the teacher and student experience, and then identify ideas or steps to take for classroom implementation. So just to get us warmed up and started, I have a couple of polls. So the first one is asking, what concepts in writing and grammar have you found the most challenging or the highest need? Writing compound and complex sentences, spelling and punctuation, extended essay responses, capitalization, contractions, subordinating conjunctions, some more beginning grammar skills, and some more on the higher level grammar writing skills. Yes, people writing the way that they talk is challenging in an ESL classroom to get sentence structure, verb tenses, commas, pronoun agreement spelling, and irregular verbs. All very common grammar and writing skills. In addition to some of the skills that you guys just named in our poll, we can see that the need for supported practice is there even based on college and workforce needs. So just a couple of points here that nearly 40% of community college registrants have skills below the college level. So we see the importance of including writing and improving those writing skills and grammar skills in our classrooms in alignment with the goals of many of our students who do have the goal of going on to college level classes or workforce. So even in the workforce, the writing demands in most jobs, including entry-level jobs, are increasing as well. So on both ends, whether it's the academic end, whether it's the workforce end, there is that need for the improved writing skills. And as someone mentioned, not writing the way we talk, but using proper tone, proper sentence structure, grammar, punctuation, all of those things in those academic and workforce settings. Let's take a look at some of the features to find out how this tool could potentially function in your classrooms. Just an overview of Quill. First off, it is a free platform, and there are some features that you can access by upgrading to a paid account, but those features are more related to like detailed reporting or exporting data. So unless you have a specific need for that type of information of exporting data, you really do not need to upgrade because you can access all of the features that we're going to talk about today under the free account. Quill offers 6 different unique tools to engage students in the classroom. They have the reading comprehension, writing, and language skills, and there's over 100 different concepts from various levels, from elementary to high school level activities, and even on into some pre-AP level activities in their curriculum. Lots of levels, variation, and covering multiple skills. And so as we move forward into these next few slides and highlighting a few of the main features of the platform, I'm going to present to you a corresponding scenario. And so the scenarios here are really meant to invoke thought and to help you to begin to find personal application for this tool. So first, let's start with this scenario. Having a large class with diverse skill levels, some students need intensive help with baby basic grammar, others are working on more advanced skills, and you as the instructor have limited time to provide the individualized instruction that may be needed. So how do you currently identify the differentiated writing instruction that's needed for learners at different levels? Or if you do have like an ongoing class, as new students enter your class, how do you identify their skill levels and need? Well, through Quill, their diagnostic tools, you can assign a diagnostic. The diagnostics range from general ABE, ASC diagnostics or ELL focused diagnostics. They're leveled, so you have a beginning, intermediate, or advanced level of those diagnostics. And then a pre and post, which is always great so that way we can measure progress as they're going through particular lessons and completing activities. When students complete the Quill diagnostic, it's going to then generate a learning plan of activities based on their performance in that diagnostic. The personalized learning plans are going to identify areas of proficiency and then suggest growth activities for each student that the instructor can review and then assign. So this is a snapshot of the diagnostics page. So if you see here in the yellow box, this is the output of the diagnostic reports or the different views in the way that you can read the summary of the information on your class. In the blue box here, it's the practice recommendations. So again, this is an overview based off of the individualized learning plans for the student. So suggested activities for that student are highlighted in green. And then from there, you can select and assign lessons to those individual students or your whole class if necessary. The Quill diagnostic assesses the students' proficiencies in their writing skills. And then based on how they perform, it's giving that learning plan for the students. So then let's think about how you currently manage to provide differentiated writing instruction for the learners at the different levels. How would you typically support these learners in improving their sentence structure? A group of adult learners who frequently struggle to form coherent sentences in their writing. They write short, simple sentences with many grammatical errors. How are you currently, or how would you typically support these learners in improving their sentence structures? Or if you are maybe in a remote or hybrid learning environment, these types of classes are lacking that benefit of having the immediate feedback. So you're not there as the instructor to maybe look over the shoulder of your students. You're not there in person to necessarily see that immediate feedback. So how do you support those learners? Or what challenges have you faced in teaching writing skills remotely? And how have you addressed them? These are just a couple of scenarios that we can think of when we're talking about independent practice and independent practice needs. Two of the tools that work with that independent practice are the Quill Connect and Quill Grammar. As students work through the independent activities, they're guided, they're given immediate feedback on their work, which is very key. They're not waiting for you as a teacher or an instructor to have to grade or waiting for the next class period to get the answers or responses. As they are interacting with the platform, they are getting and receiving immediate feedback. And the independent practice is structured where it is a scaffolded approach. So students are getting support, and that support is being removed as they are progressing and advancing in their skill levels. When they complete Independent Quill Connect or grammar activity, they have 5 attempts to submit the optimal or correct response to receive a point for that question. So this isn't just a one time and then it's incorrect. No, if they submit a response that is not the optimal response that the system is looking for, they have up to 5 chances to submit and receive a point for that particular question. And each time they're submitting, as you see here in the screenshot, they're receiving feedback and guidance. For the example here, They're combining sentences of firewood was limited in the Great Plains. Tribes in the Great Plains burned buffalo droppings. The students submitted their response of combining the sentence. And here's the feedback in this peach yellowish color box where it says, good work. Now correct your punctuation. Below that, there's even a hint for the student regarding that punctuation of how to connect two sentences with a comma. So this is the support and immediate feedback that students are receiving. So again, having another opportunity to submit it absolutely with the optimal response and receive the point for that particular question. The benefit of this too is that students have time to read and revise. There's no rush, there's no pressure. They have the opportunity to make mistakes, again, under no pressure, without maybe somebody looking over their shoulder or feeling intimidated in any setting. It's very low pressure situation for the students in that they have that opportunity to practice. Let's talk about our ESL students, our English language learners. So in that case, how are you currently supporting your ELL students in mastering grammar? In this scenario, we have students who are struggling with grammar, verb tense, sentence agreement. It's still some of the skills that you mentioned initially in the poll, and they need extra practice, but often feel frustrated and or overwhelmed by some traditional grammar lessons. With Quill, in addition to the features that were previously highlighted in the independent activities, there are 3 levels of ELL lessons. This slide here in the yellow box is highlighting the different skills or objective covered under each of those levels. So the starter level, intermediate level, and advanced, and you can take a look at some of the different skills that are covered under each of those. Non-ELL Quill content is going to be aligned to a more advanced level, exit NRS, or kind of going into like the ABE, ASE level if you're applying those lessons to ESL students or ESL classrooms. ELL diagnostics have the option of the directions being provided in English only or English and another language. And for the diagnostics, there are multiple language options. And the ELL lessons have the option for directions to be in English and Spanish only. Here we have an example on the left here. This is what the opening screen looks like for a diagnostic. And you can see they can have those instructions in English only or English and another language. There are multiple languages here to choose from. And for the independent activities, same option, English only or English and another language. And that other language is Spanish, only Spanish. But again, you're providing more support for those students. So let's take our focus into our workforce IT or certification programs. What strategies do you currently use to teach workplace writing skills? So you have workforce learners who are preparing for workforce entry, but again, that professional level writing they're struggling with. They need practice with writing that is clear and grammatically correct. Or if we're looking more towards our HSE classes and students who are working to pass the GED test. And again, someone mentioned in our warm-up about writing for the essay, which we know is part of that GED test. So these learners need to know how to write evidence-based writing to improve their essay skills. And so thinking about that, what resources are you currently using to help students, or maybe that you're missing that you need to help students? So Quill provides 2 lesson activity types to support the building of writing skills. So one activity is the Quill proofreader. And in this activity, students are assigned a proofreading lesson. They'll follow the steps of reading the passage, then correcting the grammar and punctuation errors that they find. And then they would get feedback on each correction that is made. And the third step is that they work on the follow-up activity that would focus them on any errors that they made in that passage. The other activity is the Quill Reading for Evidence. So this is an activity that would directly align with evidence-based writing essay, like what we see and experience on the GED test. In this particular activity, students would read and highlight the text, and then they would write sentences based on what they read, and then they'll revise those sentences based on the immediate feedback that is provided through the application. So one note about this particular tool, the Quill Reading, is that the feedback is artificial intelligence. So we have to explain to students to know that artificial intelligence isn't always correct or absolutely correct. The benefit of this is that once they complete the activity, both the teacher and the student will see a report with the score and the responses that were submitted. And that gives something for them to review, revise, and then, of course, work on building any skills. But definitely having that independent practice, having that ability to get immediate feedback on what they're writing, again, not waiting necessarily for someone to review or grade and things like that. Students are able to have that practice and build those skill levels on their own time, and then still coming back to the classroom with something for the instructor to work with and build upon. So the last feature, when we talk about lesson plans, as educators, we can all appreciate prepared lesson plans that include interactive elements and that are, for the most part, if you would say, kind of ready to go. Quill lessons are a tool for instruction with whole classes or small groups of students. And these are teacher-led lessons, and they're presented through a kind of a slide format. And so students will see the slide on their device and then engage with the slides by responding to prompts and discussing the relevant writing skills that are in that particular lesson. During a Quill lesson, students don't receive that automated targeted feedback as they would in some of the other independent activities. However, as a teacher, you can choose to anonymously display their responses during the lesson to prompt further discussion. You can give feedback and you can encourage the students to revise their answers all through that lesson tool. On the last slide of the lesson, you can then assign a follow-up Quill Grammar or Quill Connect activity, and that are, of course, graded to the system that we talked about with the independent activity. So those definitely are having that automated targeted feedback. You can take them through a teacher-led lesson that is interactive, and then from there, identify who needs some additional support or what additional support is needed by connecting them to a corresponding Quill Grammar or Connect activity, which allows them to go on to do that independent practice that they need to build those skills. So this is a snapshot of the Quill lesson screen. Here we see the green arrow in this column. These are your preview of the slides. You can see who is actually viewing it, and that's also shared on the main column of what is actually on the screen. So here in the blue, this is what the students are seeing on the screen. It's giving you a prompt and telling you what you should say to the student. It walks you through step by step, and then the students can on their devices input, and you will be able to see and manage sharing their responses or having them retry their response, all from this large panel on the right. And then the orange arrow here are some tools for you to use if you want to project it, not only having it on your screen, but if you were using, say, a projector or a second screen, you can do that. If you need to flag a student for additional follow-up, you can do that from here. If you need to download the lesson plan, or if you have questions, I forgot how to use this tool, you can access all of that in the help from that bar here in the orange. What is the process for using Quill? On the instructor end, first things you would do is create your instructor account and log into that account. The first time that you log in, it's going to walk you through the steps of creating a class. Once you've created a class, it will provide and generate a PDF of login instructions that you can share with your students. So you can share the link with your students. You'll see here in a moment, depending upon how you put them in there. If you need to print off the PDF and cut out the login cards, you can do that. So there's multiple ways for you to assist students in logging into the platform. You can then assign lessons and activities to the class that you just created. The suggestion is that you start with a diagnostic, but it's not required. If you already know, I want to go in here and I want to teach a specific grammar concept, you can search for that concept and assign it to your class as necessary. But suggestion is to start with the diagnostic. From there, once students are completing their activities, you can use the reports to identify mastery and provide additional supportive instruction as you see fit. From there, you can assign a diagnostic to measure growth. So if you use that pre-diagnostic, you started off with one, after so long or after they've completed certain activities, you can then assign a post or growth diagnostic to, again, measure where they are and then adjust instruction accordingly. So that's the overall process of how you would use Quill. Let's move into our demo and kind of experience some of the features that we have talked about. To join the demo class, and for the purpose of this demo, I'm going to ask that you create a student login using a username and password. Even though when you go to log in, there's options for you to log in through Google or something like that, I'm going to suggest that you don't, because in the event that you go on to create a teacher account, you can't switch, right? So if you start here with a student account and you're using your work email, it doesn't allow you to switch over to a teacher account. So when I provide you with the QR code, you're going to choose the options to sign up using a username and password. And that was highlighted here in the box. You put in your first and last name, create a username and a password. You can make up the first and last name. It doesn't have to be your real first and last name. I would suggest maybe writing down or saving the username and passwords. You can come back to it later, look at some of the demos. And even as you go on to create your own classes, you can still use that as a kind of a demo or playing a student account in the future. Just kind of keep that in mind. Here is the class code to join the demo class. The class is called TT Demo, and you can use a mobile device. If you have a second device, you can use that to scan the QR code on the screen to join the specific class. If you already have a student account with Quill, you can log into your student account and join class. And the name of the class or the class code is rooftop-shoe, rooftop-shoe. But go ahead and create that account. Again, you don't have to use your real first and last name. You can make it up. You can use a real one, but you're going to use a first, last name, username, and a password. You don't want to connect your email with it so that you don't have any issues creating a teacher account in the future. Once you've logged in, what is on the screen is the student dashboard. This particular student is part of two different classes. And the class that we're in today is TT Demo. So this would be on your dashboard for your classes once you have created your account and logged in to the class. Just on the student end, and that's what you're experiencing today, is seeing the perspective from what the students would experience. From your dashboard, you would select the appropriate class. And again, for today, it is TT Demo. And once you click on that class, it's going to pull up the assignments that have been assigned to this particular class. So on my dashboard, we can see the activities that have been completed, how much time I spent, and then the classwork in my to-do activities. I've completed the intermediate diagnostic, and since you guys are all joining new, you should see the intermediate diagnostic under your to-do activities, but you can go back and see completed activities. We have an example of a teacher-led lesson. We'll come back to that in a moment. And then we have examples of the other 4 types of independent activities. You have Quill Connect and Quill Grammar activity. You have the practice proofreading and reading for evidence activities. So go ahead and click into any one of those so that you can practice submitting a response. You would just click Start next to the activity of interest. And again, if it's an ELL-based activity, it's going to provide options to have those instructions in English only or English and Spanish. It's going to then give you instructions for completing that activity with examples, and then you would begin that activity. So in this one, we're working with really and very. You do have to type in the answer. This isn't a drag and drop, so you do actually have to type in the answer. I really like this jacket. You submit your answer. Yes, that is correct. This movie was not really Good. Here's my immediate feedback to try again. We're going to use very when it's a negative sentence, and then it's giving you a hint down here below. So it's giving the student information, suggestions to help them get to the optimal correct answer. The sentence combination ones are, of course, going to take a little bit longer versus these grammar activities where you're just filling in the blank with the correct word. Take that in consideration. And again, a reading activity is going to take longer because you're going to have to read and then build those sentences, or same thing for the proofreading, having to proofread and submit those responses. But those are all 4 examples that you have there of the student independent activities. Once you're done, or if you're not done, you can save and exit so that you can come back. Or once you are done, you can submit your entire assignment. And I just clicked save and exit, which took me back to our student dashboard, and I went back into our class. The other one that I want to show you is the teacher-led lesson. So you might see on your screen where it says your teacher has launched a live quill lesson. And this is going to be an example of what the teacher-led lesson looks like, and you'll see that from the student end. So you can click join the lesson when you see that screen pop up.
Ryan, there was a couple questions from a participant. It's asking me to enter a credit card when I try to create an account.
You should not have to enter a credit card at all unless you're trying to upgrade. And of course, it might try to upsell you to upgrade your account. You do not need to upgrade your account. You just want the free account. Don't enter a credit card. For remotely, assign and give students, that's an awesome suggestion. Assign students, give them 30 minutes to complete. How can I use a remote lesson when teaching a live class? So how can you use a remote lesson? When you're teaching a live class, it's the same thing. If they're live in front of you, you would have your students log into their Quill accounts from their devices, and they'll be able to participate and interact with this live lesson right there in front of you. If you have a projector or a second screen, you can also project through the tools that are within the Quill lesson. You can project that onto a big screen so that way they're seeing the interaction and the submissions that you're displaying or that you're seeing as well. Same thing, if you're remote, they're seeing their slides, they can interact. And if you're in person, they can see that and interact as well, but you have more options to display it in terms of projection because you might have a projection screen in that live class. We've joined the lesson. Now, I'm going to show you what it looks like on the teacher end. On your screens, there's a question here. And as the teacher on my end, I'm seeing what I should say to the students, how I should walk through this lesson. I'm going to ask you to complete the fill in the blank on your own. So go ahead, you can type your responses, you can type a sample response, and it'll show up. What you're seeing is what the students would see on their end. On my screen, I'm going to move it over so that you can see this is what the teacher view looks like. So if somebody has submitted responses, I can select those responses to display if I want to generate some discussion about that particular response and have that interactivity. That's what I'm saying with the teacher view. Now on your student screen, I'm going to move this back so you can see. Now I'm displaying some of the answers that students have responded. So if some of them were incorrect, I can have that discussion and all that. So this is what the students will continue to see. You are controlling what the students are seeing on their slide. And even on the teacher side, if students are submitting incorrect answers, I can give them that immediate feedback to say, why don't you retry that? So again, I'm going to bring it back over so you can see the teacher side. Say, for instance, Gracie submitted an incorrect answer. I can say, I want her to retry that. That goes just to Gracie or whoever I've selected. You're controlling what students are seeing on the screen. So if you want to display some answers as an example, to talk about it, to correct it, if you want to give some immediate feedback to a student who is submitting an incorrect answer, you can do that. If you're seeing a student that is maybe really struggling, you might want to flag that student to say, I definitely need to follow up with that student later, get more in depth. So this is the teacher screen that you're seeing for the teacher-led lessons. So it's all live. As you walk through the slides, it's giving me what I need to say, what we need to do. It's literally giving you step by step, as well as having the option to have the downloadable lesson plan from your tools up here. It's well prepared. It's kind of like wrapped up there for you to have that interactive element, giving that feedback, generating discussion, and all of that right there from the slides. Those are the examples on the student side. And again, you can continue to browse through all of those activities, submitting answers, experiencing the immediate feedback of those independent activities, or just experience what the teacher-led lesson would look like from the student side. And I've showed you what the teacher screen looks like and managing that in the teacher-led lesson. Let me show you what the teacher screen looks like again before I move out of it. So again, this is the teacher screen for the teacher-led lessons. And as I mentioned, on this left column, you can see who is in the lesson. So they're highlighted in blue, the students who have joined this particular lesson. So out of the 15 students in my class, 6 of them are actually here and in the lesson. So that will help with the login issues. I see some students might be struggling with technology. Ivory Garnet, how can I help you? You're able to provide that support where students might be struggling just to log in, and you can see where they are in that. And this column here is going to provide you with the preview of all of the slides. On the main column, this on the right-hand side, those are the actual slides that are displaying on your student devices. So this is what is happening. This is where you're managing what the students can see from the screen. So going back to the one where you were submitting responses, again, I can select if I want to display a student response. I can display their answer. I can have a student retry if they're submitting incorrect answers. These are the tools where you can download the lesson plan, you can flag students, you can launch a projector. So again, somebody asked about being in person, you can project. So it kind of splits it like if you were in PowerPoint and you were doing a presenter mode, that's essentially what that is. So that way you can move that over to your projector screen and then still manipulate your teacher screen from your desktop. On the screen where you can interact, you will see a box. For example, here's a screen where you can interact. And it's saying, what is one reason to use action describing words in your writing? I'm showing you now the student view. This is where you can interact. This box here means that you can type into that screen. Right. So on an instruction page, of course, that box wouldn't be there for you to interact with. So look for that box and it prompts you to type your response here to that question. Some slides might be informational, giving you information, giving you instruction. So there would not be a box for response. But if it is asking you to take an action, as you see on the screen, you will have that box for you to input your response. Just look for that and explain that to students. I'm going to just take us back to the teacher dashboard and just briefly show you the teacher side on a teacher account and the tools. So as I mentioned before, the very first time you create your teacher account is going to take you through the steps of creating a new class. So the very first time you log in, create an account, it's going to say create a class. You can select a grade level. It does not affect what lessons you're able to assign to this particular class. And then it creates a class code. All the class codes are 2 words. In this case, the class code it's creating is called weather-bull. And then you go to the next step. You have 2 options for getting your students in. They can create their own accounts or you can create the accounts for their students. So you can do this by entering in their first and last names, and then it will generate username and password for the students. Or you can have students do like you did and create their own accounts where they get the link, you share the link, and then they go through the steps of creating their student account. So again, you can copy that code and share that with your student. And then no matter how you've created or added students, you can get the setup instructions. This is a downloadable PDF that you can access at any time. so that you can share that information with the students. This is an example of login instructions for the students that is generated. So I've already added some students. If I needed it to, I could cut this out, say if I was in person, and give these instructions to the students, cut them out. You can share this, you can email this, however you want to get this information, but it does create this PDF for you. And the rest on your teacher screen, once you've created your class, is then to assign activities. All of those tools are here across the toolbar in your teacher screens. If you're going to start with a diagnostic, you can search. If you want to explore all of the activities, lessons, you can do that. And of course, there are multiple filtering options that you have to sort by grade level, by readability level. If you're searching specifically for ELL activities, if you want to connect it to some science or social studies activities, you can search through all of the 1,000 activities and filter through to get to what you're looking for in the appropriate level and appropriate lesson for your class. Going back, you then also have where you can manage activities. So if you've assigned anything, you can go back and review what you've assigned to students. You can rename it, you can close it, you can delete it. So you can manage all of the activities that you have given to a particular class. And this is also where you would launch your teacher-led lessons under Manage Activities. And then you can view the reports. So you have multiple options to view the output of the diagnostic reports. If you want to see the activity analysis for a certain report for a certain class, see how they did, and then go from there. So you have multiple options here to look at it from a class summary, student results, their responses, the practice recommendations, so maybe what you want to assign based on what is suggested here. You can do all of that from the View Reports tab. Where you see this diamond, that means upgrade and pay for more. But again, so much is provided for free. Unless you have a specific need for what is here, like exporting data, you do not need to pay for an upgraded account. And so that is what the teacher site looks like. Here in the Teacher Center and Quill support, there are multiple videos, step-by-step guides, tutorials, best practices. Quill provides resources, multiple resources for instructors. What you're seeing on the screen is a recap of the 6 Quill tools along with their icons. So as you're searching and as you're doing different activities, you see these different icons, and this is just their corresponding icon to each of the different tools. But here's some other implementation ideas on the screen. So if you're working in ESL, definitely searching for grammar or writing objectives that align with that unit in that ESL curriculum. You can use it as a warm-up or closing activity. You can replace those pencil and paper or worksheet activities for that digital literacy integration. Another example, and Quill does provide this bingo card, is to have students complete their activities. And if you have incentives, if they complete their bingo card, that's even better. And then some students will ask for additional practice and challenges. And this is a great tool to provide that individualized need. Quill has so much, so I really encourage you to get in there, use this student account to practice, to play around, to experience from student perspective on different devices, from phone to tablet, computer, etc. Use it for grammar and sentence structure. Great resources for ELL students. Yes, Quill is awesome.
Thank you so much, Ryan. I so appreciate it.
We hope you enjoyed this pre-recorded webinar. After you have passed the final test with a score of 80% or greater and have received your certificate of completion, please take a few moments to complete the course evaluation. Participant feedback helps Train PD at TCAL continue to provide high-quality professional development. To leave a course feedback, please go to the completed portion of your transcript. To do this, hover over the My Learning tab and select View Your Transcript. Click on the drop-down arrow next to the word Active and select Completed. Then, click Evaluate in the drop-down menu next to the course you just completed. Please note that your feedback is greatly appreciated.